Hello, I'm Haley Perot. Welcome to Northwest NEWSWEEK. Premier Doug Ford was in the Thunder Bay area this week to announce that 5 remote First Nations will be connected to the provincial power grid. That would end their reliance on diesel fuel, which has become increasingly costly for those communities. Vasilios Bellos reports.
Together with Indigenous partners, we're building Northern Ontario responsibly and sustainably.
It was a significant commitment from Ontario Premier Doug Ford during a trip to the Thunder Bay area to connect 5 First Nations to the provincial power grid. Webukwe, Nibinamik, Niskantika, Ebmetung, and Martin Falls First Nations would all benefit and currently rely on diesel fuel for power. Moving to Ontario's power grid would provide the communities with cheaper and more environmentally friendly supply options.
We're going to work closely with these 5 communities to develop a comprehensive plan to expand clean, reliable electricity transmission and generation infrastructure and end their reliance finally on diesel.
The announcement was met with support from First Nations leaders in attendance, though timelines and the price tag are still unclear.
Very much at the start of the conversation.
Energy Minister Todd Smith addressed the lack of specifics by pointing to the success of the Watay Power Project, which is connecting 16 other remote First Nations to the grid.
Now we're at the point where we're celebrating almost the completion of that project, and we're ready to move on to ensure that other communities in Northern Ontario will have the same opportunities that those Watay communities have.
But for some First Nations communities, the sooner this new project can get up and running, the better.
I know of some homes that say they pay $700 a month.
That includes Ebmetung First Nation, with Chief Saul Lucan explaining that diesel power is far too expensive for his community members.
It needs to happen immediately. We need to do the next steps immediately. And I told him that I'll go to wherever he wants to meet, whether it's in Toronto or here, and start a midterm planning for our energy right away.
Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Also during his visit, the Premier confirmed that his government will be building a new hospital in Canora, although it's still not clear when that might happen.
Will the province be building a new hospital in the community, and if so, what are the timelines?
Yes, we will.
Ford committed to building the hospital when asked about a government ad that had been posted and then quickly removed from the province's Instagram account. The Premier credited Canora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford for championing the new hospital. But Rickford says that while there has been progress on the project, he's still waiting on support from Ottawa.
Because of his hard work, his dedication, Canora is getting a hospital.
Where are the feds, right? Just like Sioux Lookout, these are hospitals that serve a critical mass of First Nations people. We've got great partnerships with them on the ground. They're poised to be part of the growth of that campus, and so far we haven't heard anything from the federal government.
Some parts of Canora's Lake of the Woods District Hospital are more than 100 years old, and hospital officials have said a new facility is much needed. The proposed all-nations hospital would have the same number of intensive care beds, but would include a 7-bed expansion of the psychiatric ward and offer some new services. Premier Ford and chiefs of Webukwe and Martin Falls First Nations were the special guests at an event in Toronto earlier in the week. The Indigenous-led Projects Forum heard more about the planned roads to the Ring of Fire and the environmental assessment process being led by the 2 communities. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Government can't do this alone. We need to and want to work hand in hand with our First Nations partners.
Premier Doug Ford spoke at this event promoting Indigenous-led development projects. Back in 2022, Ford and the chiefs of Martin Falls and Webukwe First Nations announced plans for the Northern Road Link. The 2 communities are guiding the work done in the environmental assessment for the proposed access roads to their communities and the Ring of Fire. That process continues, and Ford says the new roads will make it easier for all First Nations along the route to access essential supplies and services.
We're thrilled that Martin Falls and Webukwe First Nations are leading on environmental assessments for the roads that will one day become the corridor to prosperity. This partnership will get shovels in the ground much faster and ensure the Ring of Fire communities are all full participants in future economic development opportunities in the region.
The chiefs of Webequie and Martin Falls say the future jobs for their young people are a big reason why they agreed to lead the way to create new access roads to their territory.
Martin Falls and Webequie have long been involved in discussions with the Ontario government with resource development and activity on our lands, and rightly so, as the traditional land stewards of those areas.
You know, our community is, population of 1,000 people now, and, and we need to see prosperity in our community. We need to see development. We need to see, our young people prosper from the resources that are out there.
Some communities, such as Nescantica, are opposing the roads, but Wabass and Ashley Penescum hope they and others will eventually agree to be part of it. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
A pet owner and his dog drowned in the Wabigoon River in Dryden on Monday after falling through thin ice. Dryden OPP say it happened just off of Keller Road. Emergency services responded after the man went through the ice while trying to rescue the animal. They were both found deceased after an extensive search. Police are warning public members to wear flotation suits and carry an ice pick if venturing onto the ice late in the season. And if you're unsure of the ice conditions, it's best to just stay off. The band office in North Spirit Lake was destroyed in a fire earlier Thursday morning. It was one of 2 structural fires in the remote First Nation to go down that night. No injuries have been reported in either fire, according to a Anishinaabe-Aski Police Service spokesperson. Police say they received a call about the band office fire at around 3:30 in the morning, and the second fire was discovered at a different location while they traveled to the scene. The second structure was an abandoned home. Police say both buildings are now a total loss. The NAPS crime unit is investigating. Cat Lake First Nation evacuees can finally go home a month after a fire leveled the community's only nursing station. The remote First Nation evacuated roughly 80 people to Thunder Bay, where they could access the vital health care they need. Lee Noonan reports.
More than 80 people were evacuated from Cat Lake First Nation after a fire decimated the Margaret Gray nursing station on the night of March 2nd. The community's most vulnerable members and their caregivers, including Deputy Chief Abigail Wesley and her 91-year-old mother, were sent to Thunder Bay, where they would have access to the health care services they need.
We had a few kids that had pneumonia, and they were treated here, which was very good. Everything was taken care of, even our laundry, our food, everything. It was all right. It was everything. I really appreciate the help we got.
It could be years before the community has a permanent nursing station again, but for now, the makeshift facilities are good enough that most of the evacuees can return to Cat Lake. Wesley says they've been well taken care of in the city, but they're excited to finally get back home.
Everybody's glad to get home, I guess, get to their own space, not being in the room most of the day.
I'm kind of happy that I get to go home and see my Sumish and stuff.
Yeah, do you have brothers and sisters or cousins you're missing back home?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about school? Are you missing school?
Not really.
Work site, we want to go home. And yeah.
What are you missing most right now about home?
Fishing, ice fishing.
Evacuation support here in the city was coordinated by Thunder Bay Fire Rescue. Kevin Anderson with the incident management team says it's a full-time operation to manage an evacuation, but that they're happy to help.
Really nice community, very appreciative, and so we have set up different activities for them. There's children as well, right through to elders, so different things to keep them busy, and all the health supports. That was a reason that they had to come down, because of the nursing station, so it all went well. They got the supports they needed, and now they can go back home.
With flood and forest fire season coming up, Anderson says the fire department is prepared to step up and support any other communities that may be evacuated here in the coming months. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
It appears Admatung First Nation has beaten a tight timeline to get materials for its temporary school into the community. The First Nation has been transporting the components up the Winter Road after a devastating fire destroyed its only school. 4 teenagers were arrested after the John C. Yes No Education Center burned to the ground in January. The new temporary school was made possible by a $13 million federal investment. It will support nearly 300 students until a permanent facility can be built. Chief Solomon Atlukin says this progress sets them up well for the upcoming school year.
We're shooting for the temporary school opening up September, so it has to happen immediately. All the logistics have been in place, such as where it's going to go, and the storage, the contractor, all that thing, and all we need is the material now, and we got everything, I think, to begin.
The federal government has estimated a new permanent school can be built and ready to open in about 3 years. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu announced millions of dollars on Friday for much-needed housing on First Nations. The funding will go to 9 communities around the Northwest. Hajdu says a total of $15.3 million is coming from the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. She made the announcement in Long Lake 58, which is receiving the largest amount at $2.6 million. The other recipients are Arrowland, Shaw Lake, Wapakika, Wenaming, Muskrat Dam, White Sand, Webequie, and Red Rock Indian Band. Across the 9 First Nations, the government is projecting more than 200 new housing units will be built in the next 3 years, with more construction being spurred over the next decade. It's time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll hear from 2 chiefs near Marathon who oppose mining exploration in their territories.
Our assertion is that this is unceded territory and that we own all those resources that are out there.
Two Northshore First Nations are criticizing the Ford government for registering mining claims on territory that is subject to ongoing land claims and in areas of high cultural value. The chiefs of the communities formerly known as Pick River and Pick Maubert say the province is damaging relationships and causing uncertainty for the mining industry. Lee Noonan has more.
Neighboring First Nations, Biktigong Nishnabeg and Nedamazagамig Nishnabeg, are taking it upon themselves to tell the mining industry what areas of their territory are and are not open for development. Nedamazagамig Chief Louis Kisawa and Biktigong Chief Duncan Mishano both say the province has no jurisdiction to approve mining exploration on their lands.
Colonialism is alive and well today. It's a colonial act, and it's oppressing our voice.
Our assertion is that this is unceded territory and that we own all those resources that are out there. And until such a time as that we may, and I'd say may sign a treaty, those resources are ours.
Both leaders say their communities are generally open to resource development in their territory if it's done sustainably and in partnership with the First Nation, but they've identified some areas of high cultural value that are completely off limits. They say the province has allowed thousands of claims within these no-go areas.
There are certain areas that will never be mining going on. There's ceremonial sites, there's sites that we harvest, whether it's medicine or food, those types of things that we need to sustain ourselves. That's a part of who we are as a people.
Since 2020, the ministry has kept a notice of caution on the region, advising mining companies that the area is subject to ongoing land claim litigation. But the First Nations say the province is giving companies false hope and wasting their resources by continuing to register claims. They want all claims in the no-go areas canceled.
We don't want any mining basically within those culturally sensitive areas, period. The province is making these mining companies believe that, at someday if they come up with an ore body that they'll have a mine there. They won't. They won't. We won't allow that to happen.
Both chiefs say the current government's handling of the mining file has strained relationships between the province and First Nations and caused uncertainty for mining companies. They aim to provide that clarity themselves by publishing clear restrictions on mining exploration. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
April 1st marked the official start of the Ontario forest fire season. And with the unusual winter this region had, many people have had concerns about the potential fire activity this spring. The recent dump of snow has alleviated some of those fears. MNRF Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand says now that there's snow on the forest floors, the upcoming forecasts will be more telling.
Week-to-week weather that we get is more of a concern than, had we not received any snow for the latter half of the winter, sure, there'd be certain concerns. But as we get closer into the spring and into more seasonal weather, it's that day-to-day weather and that regular widespread rainfall that we're looking for to keep those spring fire potential under wraps.
With the past season being so unpredictable, the MNRF will be carefully monitoring the rate at which snow melts and retreats in the forest around the Northwest. They have also taken some preemptive measures to make sure they are fully prepared sooner rather than later this year.
As a precaution, the MNRF planned for early spring fires this season by proactively bringing some fire rangers and support staff back early into March to address any potential needs arising from the spring hazard. So in terms of personnel, we're staffed and ready to respond to fires on the landscape now.
Officials are reminding the public that the start of the forest fire season also marks Ontario's outdoor burning regulations coming into effect. Details on the rules and updates on fire activity can be found at ontario.ca/forestfires. Greenstone OPP were investigating a 5-vehicle collision involving several transport trucks on Monday. The crash happened early in the morning on a curve along Highway 11 just west of Longlac. A police spokesperson said one transport jackknifed and caused a chain reaction. The collision forced the closure of the highway for a lengthy period. One person suffered minor injuries in the incident. The OPP charged one driver, but further details are not yet available. Northern Development Minister Greg Rickford made several funding announcements in his riding this week. The Canora Chiefs Advisory is getting over $700,000 to create a new primary health team. And Rickford also wants handing out money in Fort Frances. The Northern Ontario Heritage Fund is providing $487,000 to the town of Fort Frances to create a new waterfront tourist attraction. It'll feature 2 historic logging tugboats, the Hallett and the Oadam, which date back to the early 1900s. The town will use the funding to further restore the tugboats, design a dry dock to display them, and landscape the waterfront. When it's completed, the exhibit will highlight the importance of history of the logging along the Rainy River. It's Time now for another short break. When we come back, the North Shore gets ready to see more cruise ships visiting this summer.
Now that we have the ships visiting the mainland, there is a larger chance of economic impact.
More cruise ships are expected to visit the North Shore this year. Officials with the area's tourism organization, Superior Country, feels the momentum is building for what they hope will become an important part of their tourism economy. Lee Noonan has more.
This is huge. The fact that cruise ships are visiting the North Shore is absolutely fantastic.
Superior Country Executive Director Dan Bevilacqua is anticipating at least 7 visits to the North Shore next year from 3 cruise ships. The Viking Octantis and Hanseatic Inspiration, which both visited Battle Island last year, as well as a new ship, Le Champlain, which will visit the area for the first time. In addition to Battle Island, new stops are also planned for Slate Islands, Red Rock, Rossport, and Terrace Bay. Bevilacqua says the addition of the 3 inland stops is particularly exciting.
Now that we have the ships visiting the mainland, there is a larger chance of economic impact, while we still have them visiting Battle Island as well. And what we seen last year is the amount of revenue that was generated for Battle Island. They've been able to do quite a bit of projects based off of those dollars that they received from the ships. So we're very excited to kind of get that wealth spread around.
Bevilacqua says it's too early to get specific, but he expects to see economic impact in the tens of thousands of dollars. Not huge compared to other tourism draws like the Lake Superior Circle Tour, but he hopes to see the numbers grow.
It kind of operates like a snowball. Once one comes, they all kind of copy each other and what they do and what their offers are. So we need to continue that momentum in attracting the different ships, because once we attract one, we know that there's 2 others looking at us.
Bevilacqua says Superior Country is actively working to familiarize new cruise ship operators with the area as they continue the push to make the North Shore a destination for cruise ship passengers from around the globe. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
A cheerleading team from Canora was among the competitors at the 2nd annual Offa Regional Cheerleading event in Thunder Bay this past week. Jessica Clement has the story.
This year's championship saw 6 cheerleading teams from St. Ignatius, St. Pat's, Superior CVI, Hammersholt, Westgate, and St. Thomas Aquinas competing for the Offa Championship title on Wednesday. This was the second annual Offa Regional Cheerleading event, also featuring demo performances by Ecole Grand Morgan and EQ Jennings, and cheer dance performances. St. Ignatius head cheerleading coach Christine Whitteluck says despite some hiccups, it was a good day.
It's actually really nice that we have in Northern Ontario, I guess you could say, we have a really good, strong community of cheerleading. All our high schools in Thunder Bay have teams. This isn't the case in Southern Ontario right now. So we are very proud that we have such good participation.
The St. Ignatius Falcons won the Offa Championship for the second year in a row, with the Hammersholt Vikings coming in second and Westgate Tigers coming in third. St. Ignatius cheerleader Bailey Jarzabek says it was great to go head-to-head with so many talented teams.
We had many good teams here today, and I wish we could all win first place, but it feels pretty good.
After all the hard work we put into, it's nice to get some recognition.
We really spent a lot of time working out very small technical things in our routine, so that was a big part of it, but yeah.
And just like breaking it down and making sure we're all working together as a team too.
This year's championship saw more than just local teams, as cheerleaders from St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Canora also competed. And while they didn't win, they said they're proud of what they've accomplished.
We're a small team. We're just working our way back up, building a new team, and I think we're here. We made some flukes, but we're just here and we're going to be better. We're going to do better. And we just got to build back up.
They did really well and they prepared really hard. we would do 2-hour practices every 2 days, and then they'd use their lunch breaks to practice as well. So they're a very committed team and they worked really hard to get here.
Jessica Clement, TBT Sports.
And that's it for this edition of Northwest NewsWeek. Join us next time for more of the top stories from across the region.